Hi, and welcome to Afterworld Narrator. This is where I share fictional survival stories set in post-apocalyptic worlds. So if you enjoy tense, mysterious, and dramatic survival tales, sit back, relax, and let's step into the story.
The propane burner hissed blue flame under my dented cooking pot. Vegetable soup, generic brand from a dumpster 3 days ago. The can had been dented but not punctured, still sealed, probably safe. When you're homeless in Hammond, Indiana, you learn not to be picky about expiration dates or cosmetic damage. I stirred with a bent spoon and listened to the radio. Classic rock out of Chicago. Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine. The reception was shit this deep in the culvert, all static and warble and fade, but it was human voices. Human music. Proof the world still existed outside my 300 yards of concrete tunnel. June 1st, 2024. Tuesday. Warm night for early summer. The kind of night where the humidity made your shirt stick to your back even when you weren't moving. 9 years since I'd moved into this drainage tunnel under Interstate 80. 9 years since I'd lost everything that mattered. 9 years perfecting the art of being invisible. The Marines taught me a lot of useful skills: how to kill efficiently, how to survive in hostile territory, how to sleep light and wake ready, how to eat anything, how to move silently, how to assess threats and respond with appropriate force. But the most useful skill I learned wasn't from the Corps. I learned it after I got out, after I lost my apartment and my job and any pretense of being a functioning member of society. I learned how to become nobody, how to exist in a space where people look but don't see, where your furniture, background, nothing worth noticing or remembering. I was very good at being nothing. The culvert was perfect for it. 8 feet wide, 12 feet high, running 300 yards from the Little Calumet River drainage system to the Sheffield Avenue outflow. The city engineers built it in 1973 to handle flood overflow during spring storms. They did good work. 2 feet of solid concrete, rebar reinforced. No leaks even after 50 years, no cracks, no structural damage. The highway rumbled overhead 24/7, but after 9 years it was just white noise, like the ocean, like breathing. Background sound that meant home. I had my system down to a science. Military surplus sleeping bag rated to 20 below zero. Cost me $15 at a pawn shop in Gary back in 2015. Still worked. Shopping cart I'd found behind a grocery store, one wheel wobbled but the frame was solid. Propane burner with 2 backup canisters. Ein cooking pot and bent spoon, 50 feet of paracord. First aid kit from a dollar store. Flashlight and batteries. Pocket knife that had been my grandfather's. Rebar for defense. 3 feet of solid steel. Good weight, good reach. Everything I needed fit in that cart with room to spare. The soup started bubbling. I killed the flame and set the pot aside to cool. No point burning your mouth when you've got nowhere to be and all night to eat. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. Burned the roof of my mouth so bad in my first month here that I couldn't taste anything for 2 weeks. That's when I heard footsteps, not overhead. That was constant. Just the rumble of trucks and cars on I-80, endless stream of people going places I'd never go. These were different. In the culvert, coming from the east entrance, slow, uneven, aren't the kind of steps that said drunk or injured or drugged. The kind that meant potential trouble. I killed the radio mid-song, Billy Idol, White Wedding, sat perfectly still, listened hard, shuffling steps, dragging, heavy breathing that sounded wet, raspy, like someone drowning on dry land, like lungs full of fluid, getting closer, not slowing, not cautious, just relentless forward movement. I grabbed my flashlight but didn't turn it on yet. Moved behind my cart where I had cover and clean sight lines to both entrances. My right hand found the rebar, 3 feet of solid steel. I'd used it twice before on aggressive drunks. once on a crackhead who thought my gear looked easy to steal. It worked. The weight alone was usually enough to make people reconsider. If that didn't work, one swing to the kneecap made them reconsider faster, and the footsteps shuffled closer, into the dim radius of light cast by my propane burner's pilot light. Just enough to see shapes, shadows, movement. The figure that stumbled into view made my stomach drop. Eddie Torres. I recognized him immediately. One of the other homeless guys, veteran like me, Army. We'd crossed paths at the soup kitchen on 119th Street a few times, nodded at each other. That casual acknowledgement that said we shared something. Combat, service. The particular kind of broken that came from seeing too much and coming home wrong. But we'd never talked. That was the homeless code. Everyone's got their story. Everyone's running from something. Nobody asks, nobody tells. But Eddie wasn't walking right. He lurched forward like his legs didn't work properly. Like someone had cut the tendons and he was just dragging meat. His breathing was wrong, wet, rattling, like he was drowning from the inside. "Eddie," I said, kept my voice calm, even, non-threatening. The voice you use with spooked animals or people having a mental health crisis. "You okay, man? You need help?" He didn't respond, didn't turn his head toward my voice, didn't acknowledge that I'd spoken at all. Just kept shuffling forward, arms hanging at his sides, head tilted at an angle that looked wrong, too far. Like his neck was broken, but he was still walking. I clicked on the flashlight. The beam hit his face and everything inside me went cold. Gray skin. Not pale from shock or blood loss. Not ash-colored from death. Actually gray like concrete dust, like he'd been dipped in paint and left to dry. His eyes were filmed over, white, clouded like cataracts, but thicker, denser, completely obscuring the iris and pupil. His mouth hung open and blood ran down his chin, dark and viscous and fresh, dripping onto his jacket in steady, thick drops. And his throat. Jesus Christ, his throat. A chunk of meat missing the size of my fist, ragged edges like something had bitten it out. I could see the torn remains of his trachea, the white gleam of vertebrae, the wet pink of muscle that still somehow worked despite being exposed to open air. "Eddie," I said again. My voice wasn't calm anymore. "What the fuck happened to you? Who did this?" He lunged. No warning, no build-up, no transition from standing to attacking. Just sudden explosive movement, arms reaching for me, hands grasping, mouth opening wider than mouths should open, impossibly wide. That blood-slicked maw coming straight for my face with the single-minded purpose of a predator. The Marines taught me threat assessment. They taught me that when someone attacks, you have maybe 1 second to decide, fight or flight, 1 second to read the situation and commit. And they taught me that sometimes when the threat is immediate and lethal, the only good answer is overwhelming force. Maximum violence applied as quickly as possible. End it before it escalates. End it before they can hurt you. I swung the rebar. The steel bar connected with Eddie's skull just above his left ear. The impact jarred up my arms, vibrated through my shoulders, made my teeth click together. I felt bone crack under the blow. Felt the wet crunch of a skull fracturing, felt the resistance and then the give as the rebar drove through. And the sound was wet and dense at the same time, like hitting a melon wrapped in leather, like breaking a watermelon with a bat. Eddie went down hard, collapsed like someone cut his strings, hit the concrete face first, didn't try to catch himself, didn't protect his fall, just dropped like a switched-off machine. I backed up 3 steps, rebar ready, breathing hard, adrenaline dumping into my system, waiting. 3 seconds passed. Eddie didn't move, just lay there in a spreading pool of blood and other fluids. 4 seconds. 5. Then his hand twitched, just a twitch. Could have been nerves, could have been post-mortem muscle spasm. But then his leg moved, deliberate, purposeful. And his head turned toward me even though I'd just caved in the side of his skull. even though gray matter was leaking out of the wound, even though by every law of physics and biology he should be dead. He started getting up. "No," I said, "stay down. Stay fucking down." He didn't stay down, got his hands under him, pushed up, rose to his knees, then to his feet. That wet, rattling moan coming from his ruined throat. A sound that wasn't human, wasn't animal, just wrong, just hungry and empty and wrong. I hit him again, harder this time, put my whole body into it. The rebar came down like a hammer, connected with his temple, more bone-breaking, more wet crunching. Gray matter exploded from the impact site, splattered on the concrete, on my boots, on my hands. Eddie dropped. He got up again. This time I didn't hesitate, didn't give him time to fully stand. I brought the rebar down again and again and again, drove it into his skull like I was pounding a fence post. A pulverized bone and brain. Destroyed the structure until there was nothing left that looked like a head. Until I was absolutely certain beyond any shadow of doubt that he wouldn't get up again. Until there was just pulp and fragments and the wet concrete and my own ragged breathing echoing in the tunnel. Then I stood there, covered in blood and brain matter and bone fragments, staring at what I'd just done. At what used to be Eddie Torres, Army veteran, homeless. Someone who'd probably had a family once. Someone who'd served his country, someone who'd ended up in the same place I had, eating from dumpsters and sleeping in concrete tunnels. Someone who deserved better than this. The radio was still playing. Billy Idol, White Wedding. The upbeat pop melody made everything surreal, made it feel like a nightmare I'd wake up from, when made it feel like none of this was real. I turned off the radio. In the sudden silence, I heard sounds from outside the culvert. Distant but getting louder, screaming, multiple voices, high-pitched and terrified. Car alarms, the electronic wail that meant someone had triggered a panic button or a collision sensor. Gunfire, not isolated shots, not random, sustained fire. Automatic weapons, multiple shooters, the sound of a firefight. Something was happening out there, something bad. I grabbed my flashlight and moved to the west entrance. Stayed in the shadows where the light wouldn't silhouette me. Looked out at Hammond. Sheffield Avenue looked like a war zone. Cars abandoned in the middle of the street. Some crashed into buildings, others just stopped dead, doors hanging open, engines still running, bodies everywhere, in at least 20 visible from my position. Some lying still in pools of blood, others moving with that same wrong, shambling gait Eddie had used. That distinctive shuffle drag movement that said broken but mobile. Dead, but walking. I watched a woman in a business suit tackle a teenager in a Starbucks apron, watched her sink her teeth into his throat. The kid couldn't have been older than 16, maybe working his first job. He thrashed, screamed, high-pitched and terrified, tried to push her off, but she held on like a pit bull. Shaking her head, tearing. The kid's screaming cut off, became a gurgle, then nothing. He went limp, bled out on the pavement in maybe 30 seconds. Then he stopped moving. Just lay there. Dead. I started to look away. Then the kid twitched, moved, got his hands under him and pushed up. Gray skin, white eyes, blood all over his Starbucks uniform. He stood up and immediately started walking toward the next nearest person. No pause, no confusion, no transition period, just death to walking dead in maybe 2 minutes. I watched a cop maybe 50 yards down Sheffield, recognized him. Officer Chen, good cop, fair. He'd rousted me a few times from doorways but never been a dick about it. Just told me to move along. Now he stood in the middle of the street, feet planted, shooting stance perfect, emptying his service pistol into one of those things. 6 rounds, all center mass, textbook grouping. The kind you do at the range. Each shot punched through the target. I could see the impact, see the body jerk. But the thing didn't slow down, didn't fall, didn't care, just kept walking forward like the bullets were mosquito bites. Like they meant nothing. It reached Chen, got its hands on his face, pulled, tore. Chen's screaming was high and brief, then it stopped. I watched a Honda Civic come screaming down Sheffield at maybe 40 miles an hour, driver panicking, not looking, plowed straight through a group of 5 infected. Bodies flew, limbs snapped. The car kept going, didn't brake, didn't swerve, just powered through. Left 2 infected lying in the street with broken legs, one with its lower half completely separated from its upper half. The car disappeared around the corner, and every single one of those broken infected started crawling. Dragging themselves forward, upper body only guy pulled himself along with his arms. Broken legs duo dragged useless limbs behind them, all heading toward the sounds of screaming, relentless, unstoppable, horrifying. And I watched civilization collapse in real time. And the only thought in my head was the same thought I'd had in every crisis of my life. Assess, adapt, survive. I went back into the culvert, stepped carefully around Eddie's corpse and the spreading pool of fluids. Started thinking tactically. Whatever was happening, the infected, and they were clearly infected with something, operated on basic stimulus response. They saw movement, they attacked. They heard sound, they investigated. They smelled blood, maybe they came running. But they didn't think, didn't plan, didn't use tactics, didn't communicate or coordinate, just moved as individuals all drawn to the same stimuli. That was crucial. That was exploitable. That meant they could be managed, controlled, survived. The culvert was defensible. Only 2 entrances, both narrow, at maybe 4 feet wide at the opening. Dark inside. I knew the layout. They didn't. I could see them coming with the flashlight before they could see me. I could create kill zones, force them into choke points, use the darkness, use the narrow space, use their inability to think against them. I'd trained for this. Different enemy, same principles, defensive positions, fields of fire, fallback routes. The Marines drilled this into us until it was muscle memory. Until you could set up a defensive perimeter half asleep in the dark. I could survive here. I'd already been surviving here for 9 years. This was just a new kind of survival. Different threat, same solution. Adapt, overcome, don't die. I needed to move fast. Daylight was fading. I had maybe an hour before full dark. In darkness, the infected would have the advantage. They didn't need to see. I did. First priority, remove the body. Eddie's corpse was a biohazard. Blood everywhere. Bite wound on my arm meant I was potentially infected. Couldn't afford to have more infected blood and fluids in my living space. I dragged Eddie's body to the east entrance, heavier than I expected. Dead weight plus the weight of whatever fluids were left in him. Shoved him out into the drainage ditch. Let him roll down the concrete slope into the standing water at the bottom. Let the rain that was starting to fall wash some of the blood away from the entrance. Second priority, clean the blood. Used my last water bottle to wash the blood off my tarp, my cart, my gear. Scrubbed the concrete as best I could. Couldn't get it all but enough that the smell wouldn't be overwhelming, and couldn't afford to reek of fresh blood if those things tracked by scent. Third priority, perimeter defense. Tied paracord across both entrances at ankle height. Added empty cans as alarm bells. Fishing line works better, but I didn't have any. Paracord would do. Not enough to stop them, but enough to trip them. Slow them down. Give me warning and a split-second advantage. Fourth priority, inventory. Took proper stock. 3 cans of soup, including the one I'd been cooking when Eddie showed up. 1 can of beans. 2 bottles of water, both now empty. Half a loaf of bread, stale but still edible. Propane burner with maybe a week of fuel left in the current canister. 2 backup canisters. First aid kit mostly depleted, just gauze and tape left. No antiseptic, no antibiotics. Flashlight good. Batteries good. Rebar weapon functional. Ain't bloody but functional. Not enough, not close to enough. I'd need to scavenge. But not tonight. Tonight was for defense and observation. Learn the patterns, learn the rules, then exploit them. I noticed blood on my arm, rolled up my sleeve, found the bite mark, right forearm, semicircle of teeth marks, deep enough to break skin, deep enough to bleed freely. I hadn't even felt it during the fight. Adrenaline masks a lot. Pain, injury, fear, makes you superhuman for brief moments. Then the crash comes. I stared at that bite for a long time. Eddie had been one of those things. Eddie had bitten me. Everyone I'd watched get bitten had turned fast, minutes for some, an hour or two at most for others. I'd watched it happen, watched the process. Person gets bit, person bleeds, person dies, person gets up, simple, straightforward. Inevitable, I should be dead, or turning, or whatever the fuck came next. I cleaned the wound with water from my backup bottle, my emergency reserve, used the entire tube of antibiotic ointment from my first aid kit, wrapped it tight with gauze, tied it off. Then I sat down with my rebar across my knees back against the wall, watching both entrances, waiting to see if I'd turn gray, if my eyes would cloud over, if I'd become one of those things. If this was how David Harlan's story ended, not in Afghanistan, not in some VA hospital, not frozen to death in a culvert during winter, but as a mindless, shambling corpse eating people in Hammond, Indiana. Seemed about right, actually. Seemed like exactly the kind of ending I deserved. Hours crawled past. The sounds outside evolved, more screaming at first. Women, children, men, all the same pitch of terror. More gunfire, sustained at first, then sporadic, then isolated shots, then nothing. Just screaming, then less screaming, then just that low, hungry moaning, the sound of the infected calling to each other. Or not calling, just making noise, just existing in the only way they could anymore. My bite wound throbbed, hurt like hell, deep ache that radiated up to my shoulder. But that was it, just normal pain, the kind of pain you get from any deep wound. No fever, no chills, no gray tint creeping across my skin, no clouding of my vision, no overwhelming urge to attack and feed and spread whatever this was. Maybe I was immune. Maybe Eddie's bite hadn't been fully infectious yet. Maybe there was a window. Maybe I'd gotten lucky. Or maybe it just took longer for some people. Maybe I had hours instead of minutes. And maybe I was already dead and just didn't know it yet. Nothing to do but wait and see. I stayed awake all night, watching, listening, learning. The infected shambled past the culvert entrances half a dozen times. None came in. Either they couldn't see in the dark, or my scent was masked by the concrete and standing water and industrial smell of the drainage system. Or maybe they just didn't know I was here yet. That last possibility was the one that kept me awake. The moment they knew, they'd come, and then I'd find out if my defensive setup was good enough. Dawn came slowly. Orange and red light filtering through the drainage grates overhead. Wrong colors, like someone had turned up the saturation in a photo, like the whole city was burning. Maybe it was. The smoke I could smell suggested it was. I grabbed my rebar and moved to the west entrance, stayed deep in shadow where the light wouldn't silhouette me against the darkness. Surveyed the damage. Hammond had died overnight. Sheffield Avenue was a morgue that moved, bodies everywhere. I counted 47 infected visible from my position, probably hundreds more in the buildings, thousands across Hammond, maybe tens of thousands across the whole region. The math was exponential. Each infected person could create more infected. Each bite spread it. Geometric progression, the kind that goes from 1 to 1 million in days, the kind that ends civilizations. I spent the next hour just watching, observing, learning. The Marines taught us, know your enemy, understand their capabilities, their limitations, their patterns, then exploit those patterns. The infected shambled more than walked. Slow, maybe 1.5 to 2 miles per hour. Walking speed for a healthy human was 3 to 4 miles per hour. I could outrun them easily. Good to know. They responded to movement. I watched one turn its head toward a dog running across the street 3 blocks away. Watched it start walking in that direction. Single-minded, didn't get distracted, just locked on and followed. Good to know. They responded to sound. I watched one turn toward the sound of a car alarm. Started walking toward it, took a direct path, didn't avoid obstacles, just walked straight. Knocked over trash cans, walked into walls, corrected course, kept going. Good to know. They didn't communicate, didn't coordinate, didn't seem to share information. Just moved as individuals all drawn to the same stimuli like moths to light. Bad for them, good for me. They didn't stop. I watched one with a broken leg drag itself forward, watched another with half its torso missing crawl using just its arms. Watched a third that was missing both legs somehow inch forward on its stomach like a slug. They didn't feel pain, didn't get tired, didn't give up. Just kept going toward the last stimulus that had caught their attention. Relentless. Unstoppable in the sense that they never quit, but stoppable in the sense that destroying the brain ended them. That was crucial. That was the key. Headshots only. Everything else was wasted effort. I also noticed they were relatively fresh. No decomposition yet. That would come later, days, weeks. In this heat, maybe faster. But for now, they still looked human. You still looked like people. Just gray and wrong and dead. I pulled back inside and got to work. Couldn't change the situation. Could only adapt to it. Could only make my position as defensible as possible with the resources available. Spent the morning scavenging materials from the immediate area. Didn't go far. Didn't risk running into groups of infected. Just worked the drainage works in the immediate vicinity of the culvert. Found sheet metal that had been dumped decades ago. Old drainage grates, sections of chain link fence, broken PVC pipe, concrete chunks, rebar, lots of rebar. The drainage system was full of useful junk. Used the paracord to lash the sheet metal across the entrances, created barriers that forced anything coming through to funnel single file, classic choke point. One-on-one combat favored the defender, and many-on-one favored the attackers. I needed to make sure it was always one-on-one. Found a sheet of plywood half buried in mud, dragged it out, still solid despite being waterlogged, dried it in the sun, then drove pieces of rebar through it at angles, created a spike strip, deadly but simple. Set it at the east entrance just inside where the darkness started. Anyone walking blind from daylight into shadow would step right on it. Rebar would punch through shoes, through feet, cripple them, make them easier to kill. Built a rain catch system. My tarp stretched between 2 drainage pipes, creating a funnel. Channeled rainwater into my cooking pot, then from the pot into empty bottles. Redundant system. If one part failed, the others would still work. Couldn't risk leaving for water every day. Had to be self-sufficient. Had to assume I'd be pinned here for days or weeks. Found an old piece of mirror. Broken. Just a shard, maybe 6 inches long. Good enough. Set it up at an angle near the west entrance. Let me see around the corner without exposing myself. Basic tactical trick. Saved lives in Afghanistan. Might save mine here. By noon I was exhausted. Hadn't slept in over 24 hours. Hadn't eaten since yesterday. My arms ached from hauling metal and driving rebar through plywood. My hands were torn up. Cuts and scrapes and blisters. My bite wound throbbed with every heartbeat, but the culvert was as secure as I could make it with available materials. I allowed myself 4 hours of sleep, set my internal alarm like I'd learned in the Marines, light sleep, combat sleep, the kind where you're never fully out, where any sound jerks you awake, in where part of your brain stays on guard duty even while the rest recovers. The dream came anyway. Same dream I'd had for 12 years. The compound in Helmand Province. March 15, 2012. Night raid. My squad moving through the darkness. Jake's hand signals the moment I saw movement and fired without thinking. The moment everything went wrong. The moment I made the choice I'd been living with ever since. I woke to the sound of footsteps. Different footsteps this time. Not shuffling, not dragging, normal human footsteps, careful, quiet. Someone trying not to be heard. Someone who knew infected were nearby and was being smart about it. I grabbed my rebar, moved silently to position behind my cart, watched the west entrance, controlled my breathing. Waited. A figure appeared at the entrance, silhouetted against the afternoon light, too far to see details. They stopped, looking in, letting their eyes adjust, smart. Rushing into unknown dark spaces got you killed. Hello? A woman's voice, young, maybe 30, calm, controlled, not panicked, not desperate, just careful. Anyone in there? I didn't answer. Old habits. When you're homeless, most people looking for you aren't your friends. Cops, social workers, other homeless looking to steal what little you have. When it's the apocalypse, that calculation didn't change, just got more dangerous. She took a step inside, then stopped, still smart, still careful. I'm not infected, she said. I'm alone. I'm looking for shelter. I saw this culvert from the highway overpass, figured it was defensible. 2 entrances, narrow, dark inside. Easy to defend if you know what you're doing. And someone clearly knows what they're doing. She'd assessed the position. That meant training, or intelligence, or both. I can trade, she continued. I have medical supplies, real medical supplies from a pharmacy, water, food, whatever you need. I'm not asking for charity, I'm proposing partnership. 2 people survive better than 1 in this situation. She was right about that. But she could also be bait, someone working with a group, distract the defender while others circle around. Classic ambush tactic. I stayed silent, watched, waited for her to make a mistake, give away her real intentions. She took another step. Her eyes were adjusting now. She could probably see shapes in the darkness. My cart, my gear. Maybe me if she looked hard enough. I know someone's in here, she said. I can see your fortifications, your perimeter defense. That's military thinking. Which means you're trained, which means you're smart. And smart people know that alone is death. Smart people know cooperation is survival. Good reasoning, sound logic, but still potentially a trap. Put down your weapon, I said from the darkness, kept my voice neutral, gave nothing away about my position. She didn't startle, didn't jump, just nodded like she'd been waiting for that. I'm putting down my crowbar, she said. Did it slowly, bent at the knees, set it on the concrete, straightened, stepped back, hands visible. I also have a knife on my belt, fixed blade, 4 inches, leaving it there for now unless you want me to lose that too. Keep it. Step forward. Hands where I can see them. Stop when I say stop. She complied immediately, and no hesitation, no argument. Walked forward into the dim light cast by my propane burner, stopped when she was maybe 15 feet inside, still too far to rush me, still in the zone where I could react if she tried anything. I got my first good look at her. 30, maybe 35, hard to tell. Dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Lean, fit, the kind of fitness that came from work, not gyms. Not starving, but close. Probably hadn't eaten much in the last day or 2. Wearing practical clothes, jeans with reinforced knees, hiking boots, expensive ones, well broken in. A jacket with multiple pockets, tactical style, but civilian brand. A backpack on her shoulders that sat heavy, full of something. She moved well, balanced, aware, not military but something, medical maybe, or just someone who'd learned to survive in rough situations. Your name, I said, Lisa Grant. What do you do, Lisa Grant? I'm a nurse, was a nurse, trauma unit at St. Catherine's Hospital, 9 years, saw everything, gunshots, stabbings, car crashes, overdoses, burns, everything that could go wrong with a human body. Why aren't you at the hospital? Hospitals gone. Overrun first night. Everyone who was bitten came in for treatment. Then turned. Then attacked staff. Then staff turned. Geometric progression. Place was a death trap within 4 hours. I got out early. Grabbed supplies from the pharmacy on my way. Made sense. Hospitals would have been magnets for infected and newly bitten. Death traps, like she said. Why this culvert? I asked. Why not find your own shelter, building, house, car? Because buildings have too many entrances, too many windows, too many ways in. I can't defend them alone. Cars are mobile but vulnerable. No resources, no water, no food storage. This tunnel has 2 choke points, natural defenses, limited access. Someone already set up here and survived at least a day. That's better odds than I've got on my own. Smart analysis, correct analysis, but still could be rehearsed, could be part of the con. You could be bait, I said. Group hiding outside, waiting for me to lower my guard. I could be, she agreed. But if that was the plan, wouldn't they have rushed you while you were sleeping earlier? You were asleep. I heard you snoring from outside. Could have killed you then. Took your stuff, moved on. But I didn't. Because I'm not bait. Because I actually do want partnership. Because I'm smart enough to know I won't last another week alone out there. She had a point. And if she'd wanted me dead, she'd had opportunity. What do you bring to partnership? I asked. Besides medical skills. Medical skills are huge. That wound on your arm, I can see the blood through your sleeve. Bite? Looks like bite. That gets infected, you're dead in days. Sepsis, necrosis, I can treat it. I can keep you alive. I also have antibiotics, real antibiotics, not just first aid kit garbage. I have surgical supplies, sutures, antiseptic, painkillers. Things you can't get anymore, things that'll keep us both alive. What do you want in return? Shelter, partnership, your defensive skills, your combat training. I can keep us healthy. You can keep us safe. That's fair trade. If I let you stay, I said, we have rules. I'm listening. Don't touch my gear without asking. Don't make noise after dark. I don't bring those things here. Pull your weight on defense and supply runs. If I say we move, we move. No arguments, no delays, no democracy. I make the calls. You follow them. My rules, she said. I keep my medical supplies separate. I make my own risk assessments. If you tell me to do something that'll get me killed, I say no. If you try anything, sleep with one eye open. And we split food and water even, no hoarding. We're partners or we're nothing. I thought about it, ran the calculations. Medical skills were valuable. Antibiotics were invaluable. Another set of eyes on watch rotation meant I could actually sleep. Another fighter in defense meant better odds against hordes. But it also meant vulnerability, meant trusting someone. And meant someone could kill me in my sleep or steal my shit or turn out to be something other than what she claimed. Risk versus reward. Always came down to that. Always came down to the math. Deal, I said. Stepped out of the shadows. Let her see me. See the rebar. See the blood still caked on my arms and shirt. See exactly what I was. She didn't flinch, didn't step back, just nodded like she'd expected something like this. David, I said. David Harlan, former Marine, current homeless veteran. Welcome to the worst decision you'll make all week. Lisa Grant, she said, former trauma nurse, current apocalypse survivor. Probably not even in my top 5 worst decisions this week. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Fair enough. You can come in. But the crowbar stays by the entrance until I decide I trust you. Ian and I sleep with my rebar. Acceptable. She picked up her crowbar, set it by the west entrance where I could see it, then walked into my culvert like she'd always belonged there. Lisa had more supplies than I'd expected. She unpacked methodically, organized, professional. Everything had a place, everything had a purpose. No wasted motion, no wasted space. 4 bottles of water, commercial bottles, sealed, good. 6 cans of food, mix of vegetables and protein, balanced. First aid kit that put mine to shame. Proper kit, not dollar store garbage. Antiseptic, antibiotics, real antibiotics, painkillers, surgical tape, gauze, butterfly closures, sutures, everything. "How'd you get all this?" I asked. "Walgreens on 119th. Hit it yesterday morning around 10 a.m. right after things went to hell. And while everyone else was breaking into liquor stores and fighting over beer and cigarettes, I went straight to the pharmacy, used my crowbar on the security gate, loaded up on everything that mattered. They just let you?" There was no they. Staff was dead or fled. I was alone in there, took what I needed, left the rest. Figured someone else might need it. Did they? Store was on fire when I left, so probably not. We were quiet for a moment. Then she looked at my arm. "You want to sit down so I can look at that bite?" she asked. I hesitated. Letting someone that close meant trust. Trust meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant death. That had been my operating principle for 9 years. Don't trust. Don't let people close. Don't give them leverage. But she was right about the infection risk. Sepsis killed. Fast. Painful. Inevitable without antibiotics, and she had antibiotics. Risk versus reward. Always the math. I sat, rolled up my sleeve, let her examine the wound. She didn't react to the teeth marks, didn't flinch at the depth or the ragged edges or the dried blood crusted around the gauze. Just carefully unwrapped the old dressing, examined the wound with clinical detachment, and went to work. Cleaned it with antiseptic. Stung like hell. I didn't make a sound. She applied fresh antibiotic ointment, thick layer, then wrapped it with clean gauze from her kit. Her hands were steady, professional. She'd done this hundreds of times, maybe thousands. This was just another patient, another wound, another day at work. "Bite?" she asked. "Yeah." "From one of them?" "Yeah." "When?" "Last night, maybe 19 hours ago." She was quiet for a moment, in thinking, running her own calculations. "You should be turned by now," she said. Matter of fact, clinical, not cruel, just honest. "From what I've seen in the ER yesterday, infection time is fast. 4 to 6 hours, bite to turn, you're past 19 hours. Either you're immune, the infection works differently in some people, or you're on a longer fuse. What's your medical opinion?" "I don't have enough data for medical opinion. All I have is observation. 23 people came through the ER yesterday with bites. All 23 turned within 6 hours, most within 4. So statistically you should be dead, but you're not. So either you're an outlier or there's a variable I don't understand yet. What do I do?" "Keep monitoring. Any fever, tell me. Gray tint to your skin, tell me. Vision changes, tell me. The overwhelming aggressive urges, tell me before you act on them. We'll figure it out together." "And if I turn?" She looked me in the eye. "Then I'll do what needs to be done. Same as you'd do for me." "Fair enough." We established watch rotation. 4 hours on, 4 hours off. I took first watch because I didn't trust her yet. Needed to see how she handled herself. Needed to know if she'd cut my throat while I slept or steal my gear and run or do something else that proved she wasn't what she claimed. She took over at 8 p.m. Didn't complain about the late shift. Just grabbed her crowbar and took position at the west entrance. Alert. Ready. The kind of readiness that said she'd seen some things in the last 24 hours. The kind that said she knew infected were out there and wasn't taking chances. And I tried to sleep but couldn't. Too wired. Too aware that a stranger was in my space for the first time in 9 years. Too aware that she could kill me if she wanted to. That I'd given her that power by agreeing to partnership. "Can't sleep?" she asked. Her voice was quiet. Wouldn't wake me if I actually was out. "Not yet. Me neither, first day. Adrenaline." She paused. "You really were military? The way you set up these defenses, the way you assessed me, that's training." "Marines, 2 deployments. Afghanistan." "When'd you get out?" 2012. That's 12 years homeless, long time. Yeah. What happened? I stopped being able to tell the difference between the enemy and everyone else. Core didn't like that. Gave me options, medical discharge or face questions I didn't want to answer. I took the discharge. She nodded like that made sense, like she understood something I hadn't said. I was engaged once, she said after a while. Another nurse. Met him at work. David, actually. Same name as you. We were going to get married, buy a house, have kids, build a life. What happened? I lost a baby. 24 weeks. Complications. After that, I couldn't have more. Physically couldn't. He said he understood, said it didn't matter, said he loved me regardless. We stayed together another year. Then one day he sat me down and said he'd met someone else. Someone who could give him what he wanted. Said it kindly. Said it was nobody's fault, but he left. I'm sorry. Don't be. Taught me something useful. People leave, always, eventually. Always. Even better to accept it up front than be surprised later. There was something in her voice. Some old wound that had never healed. Some damage that went deeper than she wanted to admit. But I didn't push. We'd shared enough truth for one night. I finally slept around midnight, woke when she shook my shoulder at 4 a.m. Movement, she whispered. East entrance, multiple. I grabbed my rebar, moved to position. She was right, maybe 15 infected shambling toward the culvert from the east. Following some stimulus I couldn't identify. Sound, maybe. Scent. Random wandering. First contact, I whispered. Rules of engagement. You watch my 6. I take them as they enter, one at a time. Don't let them group up. Don't let them flank. If more than 2 get through simultaneously, we fall back to position 2. Clear. Clear. The first infected stumbled through the entrance. Male, business casual, office worker, probably middle management. His tie was still on, blood-soaked and askew. He stepped on the spike strip. Rebar punched through his cheap dress shoes, through his feet. He didn't react, didn't scream, didn't fall, just kept walking forward with rebar sticking out of his feet. I let him get clear of the entrance, then swung. Clean shot to the temple. He went down, stayed down. The second infected came, female, maybe 60, grandmother type, floral dress. She avoided the spike strip by accident, just happened to step between the spikes. Lucky for her. Unlucky for me. Lisa stepped up, drove her crowbar through the woman's eye socket, smooth, professional, pulled it out, stepped back. The woman dropped. We worked in rotation. I'd hit. She'd hit. We'd drag bodies aside to keep the entrance clear, mechanical, efficient, like a machine, like we'd been doing this for years instead of minutes. 15 infected, 20 minutes. By the end, my arms were shaking. Lisa had blood spray across her face and jacket. But we'd held. We dragged the bodies outside, let them roll into the drainage ditch, let the rain wash some of the blood away. Then we sat in silence for a few minutes, catching our breath. That'll happen every day, Lisa said finally. Maybe multiple times. Sooner or later, the odds catch up. Sooner or later, we make a mistake or get overwhelmed. We can't hold here forever. We can hold long enough. Long enough for what? Rescue? Military? Cure? Long enough to adapt. Long enough to scout better positions. Long enough to build resources. Oh, one day at a time. She looked at me. Is that what you've been doing? One day at a time? For 9 years? Yeah. That's not living, David. That's just surviving. Welcome to the apocalypse. Surviving is the job now. She didn't argue, just nodded, like she'd already known the answer but needed to hear it said out loud. The days started to blur. Wake, kill infected, scavenge, kill more infected, sleep in shifts, repeat. We fell into routine fast. Routine kept you sane. Routine kept you alive. Routine meant not having to think about every little decision. Morning watch, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Whoever was on watch would do perimeter patrol. Check both entrances, make sure overnight infected hadn't accumulated outside. Make sure defenses were intact. Report anything unusual. Breakfast, 10 a.m. Whatever we had. Usually a can split between us. Soup, vegetables, beans. Eaten cold to conserve propane. Maintenance, 10 a.m. to noon. Fix any damage to defenses, improve fortifications, organize supplies, plan the day. Afternoon activity, noon to 4 p.m. Either scavenging if we needed supplies or fortification work if we didn't, or rest if we'd had a rough night. Flexible based on need. Dinner 4 p.m. Another can split between us. Save the better stuff for when we needed energy. Ration the rest. Evening prep, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Prepare defenses for night. Set up backup positions, run drills, train, practice scenarios. Night watch, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. 2 shifts, 4 hours each. Rotate every 4 hours, sleep light, stay alert. It worked. We stayed alive. By day 3, we'd fortified the culvert properly. He used sheet metal to create reinforced barriers at both entrances. Built a funnel system that forced infected to come at us single file. Set up multiple spike strips. Created fallback positions deeper in the tunnel with pre-positioned weapons. Built an emergency escape route through a side drainage pipe that connected to the next tunnel over. Lisa taught me medical skills. How to suture a wound properly. Interrupted stitch for deep cuts. Running stitch for long, shallow ones. Figure 8 for difficult angles. How to identify infection versus normal inflammation. Red and hot with pus was infection. Red and warm without pus was inflammation. How to set a broken bone using improvised splints. How to ration antibiotics to make them last. 1 pill twice a day for minor infections. 2 pills 3 times a day for serious ones. I taught her combat skills. How to move silently. Roll your foot from heel to toe. Distribute weight evenly. Test each step before committing. How to read terrain for defensive advantage. High ground is good, but not if it silhouettes you. Cover beats concealment. Concealment beats exposure. How to conserve energy in a fight. Don't swing wild. Short controlled strikes. Let the weapon's weight do the work. How to kill infected efficiently. Temple shots. Eye socket. Base of skull. Destroy the brainstem. Everything else is wasted effort. We became a unit. Not friends. Not partners in any emotional sense. Just 2 professionals with compatible skills working toward the same goal. Survive one more day. On day 7, we made our first real supply run together. The grocery store on 127th Street, in 3 blocks from our position. I'd scouted it from a distance on day 5, looked intact, hadn't been burned. Windows were smashed, but structure was solid. We went armed and careful. Lisa had her crowbar. I had my rebar. We moved in tactical formation, bounding overwatch. 1 person moves, 1 person covers, then switch. Slow. Methodical, professional. The streets were a graveyard. Bodies everywhere, most animated, some weren't. The ones that weren't had been fed on, torn apart. Infected didn't seem to eat the dead, just the living. Once you were dead, you were worthless to them, unless you got back up. We counted infected as we moved, noted positions, behavior patterns, exit routes if things went bad. Always have 3 exits, always know where they are, always have a plan B and a plan C. The grocery store had been looted. Our front section was trashed, registers smashed, aisles destroyed, shelves empty. The obvious stuff was gone. Bread, milk, meat, produce, liquor, cigarettes, candy. Everything people grabbed in a panic. But Lisa had a theory. Most people are stupid in a crisis. They grab what they want, not what they need. Let's check the back. The storage room was mostly intact. Nobody had thought to check the storage room. They'd just grabbed what was visible and run. We found canned goods, lots of them. The stuff nobody wanted. Creamed corn, beets, pickled vegetables, artichoke hearts, condensed milk, water chestnuts, bamboo shoots, weird shit. but all of it edible, all of it shelf-stable, all of it calories. We filled our backpacks, took as much as we could carry. Had to leave a lot behind, but we'd marked the location. And could come back if we needed to. That's when I heard the barking, not the sound of infected. Real barking, dog barking, scared barking. The kind that said something was wrong. I followed the sound to the pet food aisle, found a German shepherd sitting in the middle of the aisle next to a dead body. Man in his 50s, throat torn out, gray skin, white eyes, infected, but not moving. The dog was sitting guard over him, waiting, hoping, the way dogs do. The dog stood when he saw me. Big male, maybe 80 pounds, clean coat, no injuries I could see. Alert eyes, aware, intelligent, not infected, not gray, just alive and alone and scared. He approached slowly, cautious. Sniffed my outstretched hand. I let him, didn't make sudden movements, didn't threaten. He pressed his head against my palm, warm, alive, real, and in the middle of all this death here was something good, something worth protecting. "David," Lisa said behind me, "we need to move. This place won't stay empty forever." "We're taking him." That's another mouth to feed. He's a guard dog, better ears than us, better nose. He'll hear them coming before we do. He's useful. Lisa looked at the dog, at me, at the dog again. "You just want a dog." "I want the tactical advantage of enhanced senses." "You want a dog." "Fine, I want a dog. We're still taking him." She sighed. "Fine. But you feed him. From your share." "Deal." I found dog food on the shelf, dry food, big bags, loaded one into my pack. The dog followed us out of the store like he'd always been ours, like he'd been waiting for someone to find him. I named him Rusty that night. Don't know why. He wasn't rust-colored. He'd more black and brown. But the name felt right, stuck. Rusty never barked again after that first time. Just sat at the entrance during watch shifts, ears forward, alert, focused. When infected got close, his hackles would rise. Silent warning, early detection, gave us minutes of advance warning. Minutes meant the difference between prepared and surprised, between living and dead. Smart dog, good dog. Day 14, 2 weeks into the apocalypse. The world had settled into its new normal. The infected owned the streets. Survivors stayed hidden. The radio broadcasts had stopped 3 days ago. The last one was military. Automated message on repeat, telling people to shelter in place. Rescue would come. Help was on the way. Help never came. Lisa and I had our routine down. Morning patrol, breakfast, maintenance, activity, dinner. E-prep watch, repeat. Mechanical, efficient, sustainable. But Lisa wasn't satisfied with sustainable. She wanted more. She wanted progress, plans, future, hope, dangerous things. "We need to start thinking long-term," she said during maintenance on day 15. "Winter's coming. 4 months. This culvert won't stay warm. We'll freeze. We need proper shelter, heat, more food storage. Maybe start looking for other survivors. Build something real." "Building gets you killed," I said. "Building makes you a target. Building gives you things to defend and lose. So does staying in one place forever. Eventually, someone like us will find this place. Eventually, they'll want it. Eventually, we'll have to fight or move. Might as well move on our terms. We'll deal with that if it happens." "When it happens, David, not if." When I didn't answer. Went back to repairing a section of fence. Lisa wasn't done. "You've been doing this for 9 years, one day at a time, never planning, never building, never hoping. How's that worked out?" "I'm alive. Are you? Or are you just not dead yet? There's a difference." I stopped working, looked at her. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to act like we have a future. I want you to plan past tomorrow. I want you to acknowledge that survival isn't enough, that we need to build something, be something, do something other than just exist." Why? Why does it matter? The world ended. Billions died. The rest are dying. What difference does it make if we build something? If we plan? If we hope? It all ends the same. Death. Everyone dies. Everything ends. She was quiet for a long moment. And then, is that what you've been doing for 9 years? Waiting to die? I didn't answer. Because I didn't have an answer. Because she was right and wrong, and I didn't know which mattered more. I'm not asking you to change overnight, Lisa said finally. I'm just asking you to consider it. Consider that maybe there's more than just survival. Maybe there's living. Maybe there's purpose. Maybe there's a reason to keep going beyond just one more day. I'll think about it, I said. I didn't think about it. Thinking about futures was dangerous. Thinking about purpose was poison. I'd thought about those things once, before Afghanistan, before I'd learned that planning for tomorrow just meant more pain when tomorrow got taken away. Better to stay in the moment, better to focus on the now, and better to survive and let the future take care of itself. Day 17. A new sound joined the background noise. Helicopters, military, flying in formation, Apache attack helicopters, 2 of them, flying low and fast over Hammond, heading east, toward Chicago maybe, or away from it. We watched from the culvert entrance, watched them pass overhead, watched them disappear into the distance. That's good, right? Lisa said. Military means organization, means they're still fighting, means maybe rescue is real. Or it means they're retreating, I said. Means the cities fell, means they're pulling back to defensible positions and leaving everyone else behind. You don't know that. I know how the military works. I know what retreat looks like. That was retreat. The helicopters didn't come back, and we didn't see any more military after that. Just confirmed what I'd suspected. We were on our own, had been from the start, would be till the end, day 19. We heard gunfire, sustained, automatic weapons, maybe 5 blocks south, firefight. Someone was fighting, someone was organized, someone had guns and ammo and training. We listened for an hour. The firing eventually stopped. No explosions, no helicopters, just silence. Could have meant the defenders won. Could have meant the attackers won. Could have meant everyone died. No way to know. We should check it out, Lisa said. No. They might need help. They might have supplies. They might be building something. Or they might be raiders. Or they might be dead. Or they might shoot us on sight. Not our problem. Not our risk. So we just ignore other survivors? Yes. And until we know they're not a threat, yes, that's survival. She didn't like it, but she didn't argue. Just went back to watch duty. Day 20 brought the problem I'd been expecting. We heard them before we saw them. Engines, diesel engines, trucks, multiple vehicles. Moving fast, organized, purposeful. Lisa and I took defensive positions immediately, grabbed weapons, got behind cover. Rusty moved to my side, hackles up, growling low and silent. He didn't trust the sound either. 3 pickup trucks stopped at the west entrance. 25 to 30 seconds later, 2 more stopped at the east entrance. Coordinated, professional, blocking both exits. Classic ambush setup. We were surrounded. People got out. 12 total that I could see. Maybe more in the trucks. All armed. Rifles, shotguns, handguns. Mixed but functional. In all moving with purpose, with discipline, with training or something close to it. A man stepped forward from the west entrance group. Black, tall, maybe 6'2", 40s, broad shoulders. Moved like someone used to being in charge, used to being obeyed. Ex-cop maybe, ex-military. Something that gave him that command presence. Hey, he called into the culvert. Friendly tone, reasonable. But the weapons were still visible, still ready. Anyone home? We're not looking for trouble, just want to talk. I stepped into view at the entrance, stayed behind cover, rebar in hand. What do you want? Just talking, that's all. He smiled. Friendly, disarming. But his eyes were cold, calculating, assessing. Saw your setup here. Impressive work. Solid defenses, smart positioning. Figured the people inside must be worth meeting. Maybe we could trade. We've got ammunition, medical supplies beyond basics, food, gasoline. Looking to build a network, meet people with skills. We're good on our own. Are you? He looked around, at our fortifications, at Lisa moving into position in the background. You're 2 people in a drainage tunnel. We're 15 people with vehicles and weapons. We've got a warehouse, good walls, running water from a well, heat, electricity from generators. We're building something real, something sustainable. Always looking for people with skills to join up. What do you say? We say no thanks. His smile didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something hard. Something that said he wasn't used to hearing no. That's unfortunate. This is a good position, strategic, defensible. He'd hate to see it wasted on just 2 people who won't last the winter. You sure you won't reconsider? Positive. Well, he gestured to his people. They didn't move, just stayed in position, ready, waiting. Let's respect that decision for now. Then back to me. Name's Marcus Reed. Used to be a cop in Gary before all this. If you change your mind, we're at the warehouse on Sheffield. Red roof, can't miss it. Doors always open to skilled people, he signaled. His people got back in the trucks, slow, deliberate, making sure we saw every movement, making sure we understood they could have rushed us if they'd wanted. That they were choosing to leave, not being forced. The trucks pulled out, but not fast, slow, like they were memorizing the layout, like they were planning, like they'd be back. When they were gone, Lisa exhaled hard. You raiders. Yeah, they'll be back. Yeah. We should leave. Find somewhere else, somewhere they don't know about. Everywhere else is just as exposed. Here we know the terrain, we've fortified, we have supplies cached, we have defenses. Starting over means being vulnerable during transition, means being exposed while we find a new position and build new defenses. David, they have 15 people, maybe more. They have guns, they have vehicles. If they come back, we're dead. This isn't about pride, this is about math. She was right. I knew she was right. But leaving meant giving up the only home I'd had in 9 years. Leaving meant admitting I couldn't hold what was mine. Leaving meant running. And I'd been running my whole life. Running from Afghanistan, running from the VA, running from anyone who tried to get close. I was tired of running. We hold, I said. 3 days, we improve defenses, we prepare. We make it so expensive to take this place that they decide it's not worth it. Then maybe they leave us alone. And if they don't, then we fight, and we make them regret it. Lisa looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. 3 days, then we reassess. 3 days. We spent those 3 days preparing, improved every defense, built backup positions, created weapons caches at strategic points, planned escape routes, ran drills, practiced scenarios, worked 16-hour days, slept in shifts, pushed ourselves to exhaustion and passed it. By day 23, we were as ready as we'd ever be. Marcus came back at dawn. 5 trucks this time, 20 people, all armed, all organized, all ready. They blocked both entrances simultaneously. And professional timing. No warning, just engines and then vehicles and then people. Fast, efficient, like they'd done this before. Marcus stepped out at the west entrance. Last chance, David, you and your partner come with us, bring your skills. Join the community or we take this position, simple as that, your choice. It's our home, I said, we're not leaving. Then you're dying, he gestured to his people. Take it. They rushed both entrances simultaneously, 20 on 2. Bad odds, terrible odds, suicide odds. The first one through the west entrance stepped on the spike strip. Rebar punched through his boot, through his foot, through the other side. He went down screaming, blocked the entrance, Created a bottleneck. I hit the second one with my rebar. Temple shot. Clean kill. He dropped. The third one had a shotgun. Fired. And the blast went wide. Hit the concrete wall. Ricocheted. Fragments hit my left arm. Stinging. Bleeding. Not serious. I grabbed the spike strip, threw it at the entrance. 3 more of them stepped on it. Went down, screaming, blocking the entrance further, creating more bottleneck. But they kept coming, from both sides. Lisa was fighting at the east entrance. I could hear her, could hear them, could hear Rusty barking and snarling. First time he'd made sound, first time he'd fought. I grabbed one of our weapons caches, Molotov cocktails, glass bottles filled with gasoline, rags stuffed in the necks, lit one with my lighter, threw it at the west entrance. Fire bloomed, bright orange, hot, immediate, screaming, panic, men on fire running, rolling, dying, but not stopping Marcus's people, just slowing them. "Lisa," I shouted. "It's escape route, now." "Copy," she shouted back. I grabbed my pack, my essentials, lit 2 more Molotovs, threw them, created a wall of fire between me and them, bought seconds, maybe a minute, ran deep into the culvert, found Lisa already at the escape tunnel. Side drainage pipe. Narrow. Rusty was already through. Smart dog. "Go," I said. Lisa went. I followed, squeezed through, emerged 3 blocks north in another drainage tunnel. Empty, unused, safe for now. Behind us I heard Marcus shouting, heard his people fighting the fire, fighting the infected drawn by all the noise and fire and blood. Heard the chaos we'd created. "Move," I said, "before they regroup." We ran through the drainage system, emerged in an industrial lot near Sheffield, kept moving, put distance between us and Marcus. He put buildings and blocks and barriers between us. We stopped at an abandoned factory building, 4 stories, brick, multiple entrances and exits, good sight lines from the upper floors. Defensible enough for temporary shelter, caught our breath, took stock, lost almost everything, food, water, medical supplies, shelter, everything except what we'd carried and each other and Rusty. "Now what?" Lisa asked. "Now we survive," I said. "Same as always, find water, find food, find better shelter, one day at a time." "David, later. Right now we move, we're too close, they'll search, they'll hunt, we need distance." She nodded, too tired to argue, too scared to disagree. We moved deeper into Hammond, found another shelter, smaller factory, better hidden. Settled in for the night, set watches, tried to rest. But I couldn't rest. I kept thinking about the culvert. About 9 years building a life there. About losing it in one morning. About how everything you build can be taken away by people with more guns and fewer morals. Should have left when Lisa said, should have run. Should have survived to fight another day. But I'd held on. Held on to something that didn't matter. Held on to pride and stubbornness and the illusion of home. And it had almost gotten us killed. Around midnight as I sat watch, I heard something howl. Not human, not infected, something else. Something new. Coming from the south, from deeper in the ruins. Long, low, mournful. The kind of sound that raised the hair on your neck. The kind that said predator. Said danger. Said something worse than infected or raiders was out there in the dark. Rusty heard it too. Ears forward, hackles up, and growling low. He didn't like it either. Something was hunting in Hammond, something that made a veteran guard dog scared. I woke Lisa. "We're moving at first light. Something's out there, something new." "What kind of something?" "Don't know, don't care, we're not staying to find out." She didn't argue, just nodded and went back to sleep. I stayed on watch, listening, waiting, wondering what the hell else the apocalypse had in store, and knowing deep in my gut that we'd find out soon enough, whether we wanted to or not. End part 1. Hey, so that's part 1. 23 days, David and Lisa, survival, loss, new threats, and that's just the beginning. Let me talk about what I was trying to do here. This story isn't about zombies. I mean, it is. But it's really about survival, real survival. You're the kind where you're tired and scared and making decisions with incomplete information. The kind where you have to trust someone you don't know because being alone means death. The kind where you lose everything you've built and have to start over. David's been surviving alone for 9 years before the apocalypse. Homeless, veteran, PTSD, trust issues. The zombies didn't make him a survivor. They just changed what he was surviving. And that's the key. He's been running from something his whole life. Running from Afghanistan. Running from whatever happened there. Running from connection. From trust. From hope. Lisa represents something different. She wants more than survival. She wants purpose, progress, future. She's pushing David to think past tomorrow. And he's resisting because thinking past tomorrow means hoping. And hope means pain when tomorrow doesn't come. Marcus represents the next evolution. Other survivors organizing, building power structures, taking what they need. The zombies are predictable. People like Marcus aren't. They're smart. They plan. They want things. And they're willing to do whatever it takes. The hardest part of writing this was keeping it grounded. Real survival is boring. It's repetitive. It's maintenance and routine and doing the same things over and over, but stories need conflict, need progression, need stakes. So I had to balance realistic survival routines with escalating threats and character development. I wanted to show competence. David and Lisa aren't lucky. They're skilled. They're trained. They make smart decisions with the information they have, and they still barely survive, because skill isn't enough. You need luck, resources, timing, everything. And now they're in a new position, vulnerable, exposed. Marcus is hunting them. Something else is howling in the dark, and winter's coming in 4 months. They can't stay mobile forever. They'll have to find a new home, build new defenses, start over. Part 2 is going to be different, harder. Things are going to start happening that don't make sense. Reality is going to crack, and David's going to have to question everything he thought he knew. But I don't want to spoil it. I want you to experience it the same way David does, confused, scared, questioning. Here's what I want you to think about before tomorrow. David asked Lisa, "What's the difference between surviving and living?" She didn't really answer, just said surviving wasn't enough. But what is enough? In what makes life worth living when the world has ended, when everyone's dead or dying, when hope seems stupid and planning seems pointless? That's the question at the heart of this story, and David's going to have to find an answer, whether he wants to or not. Tomorrow, Part 2, The Grave I Built, Reality Cracks, Memories Surface, and David learns that sometimes the things you're running from follow you into the apocalypse. If this story hooked you, hit that like button. If you want to see where it goes, subscribe. If you know someone who needs a good survival story, share it. Thanks for surviving Part 1 with me. See you tomorrow. Same time, same nightmare. End.